Good afternoon. My name is Tabitha Pope. I am the Director of Disability Services at Southern Nazarene University. And my job here at the university is to make sure that students have access to learning or access to the campus.
So as the Director of Disability Services, when we hear the word disability, we most often think about physical disabilities. So what we want to talk about today are what are some of the mental disabilities or invisible disabilities that people suffer from that you can help them with up here in your department.
You're right. There's absolutely a stigma or a perception of someone with a disability, somebody that has an observable disability like myself, or someone in a wheelchair, someone who's blind or has a hearing issue. The invisible disabilities are the ones that are really tricky, and it's really sad because students struggle so much and nobody knows that. When we think about mental impairments, we're thinking about post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, mood issues, things of that nature that they struggle with. And it might not be a permanent thing, it could be an episodic thing, something that happens, maybe once a semester, once a year.
So when you talk about helping them and offering them an accommodation, what is meant by that? What is meant by the term accommodation? And what are some of the ones that you would offer to someone with a mental disability that you might not be able to see?
Accommodation is a funny word, and so I always describe it that I tell the students I am 4'9" and my husband is 6'4". So if you were to ask either one of us to get an apple off the top of the shelf, both of us are totally capable of getting the apple on the top of the shelf. My husband's going to reach up there and grab it and bring it down to you. But I am going to probably have to climb the shelf, and I'm going to have to spend a lot of energy and time and struggle getting the apple versus my husband. So what I would ask you is for an accommodation, which would be simply a ladder. And then with the ladder, I'm able to climb up and reach the same goal and get the apple and bring it down to you just like my husband. So that's an accommodation.
So while some people might view an accommodation as something that is maybe gives someone an advantage, what you're saying is actually just
equals the playing field, yes. So if somebody were very depressed, then sometimes when the depression is so severe that they just don't even feel like getting up in the morning. And they can't get up. And it could be a day, it could be a week that they're really struggling. And maybe it's medicine that they haven't taken properly, but they're struggling. An accommodation for that would be a reasonable flexibility accommodation.
People tend to fear what they don't understand or walking into new situations where they don't know what's going to happen. So as the new student came to you and asked you for an accommodation or an evaluation, what is kind of like a brief synopsis of the steps they would go through once they came into your office?
We're very focused on making sure that the student is going to be able to be successful academically. So I don't want to overwhelm them with, go get A, B, and C and then come see me. But we want to meet with them, talk to them, see what the situation is. Then we get them the accommodations that they need to get through and be successful. But then we're hoping that they're going to give us some kind of accommodation or documentation that's going to state the diagnosis and hopefully how it's interfering with the classroom or campus.
But when they first come to see you, they don't need to have that?
No, they would first just come in and identify and talk to me and tell me what's going on and what's getting in the way of their learning in class.
What advice would you have for someone that's hesitant to come and see you, and maybe privacy issues as that plays into it?
Yes, that's kind of the same question about the stigma in high school. Here, it's confidential, very, very confidential. So once a student identifies with me, I create a file, and that file is locked in a file cabinet, so nobody will ever know what the disability is or the student's name. There's also, once a student is found eligible with our department, then there is a letter that's written. It's called the Student Access Plan that's given to the professor. But on that letter, nowhere does it say what that student's disability is. It just states the accommodations that are allowed for that student. So everything is confidential, especially when we're thinking about mental impairments. The stigma is so big, students don't want professors to know, and there isn't anything about this process or this department that is going to share that student's private information with faculty.
So if you had anything else to say to the students, what would it be?
There is one big thing that I want to make sure all the students know. They don't have to struggle like they've been struggling or could be struggling if they had an episode. It's really important to me that students understand that God created them, that they are special, bright lights in this world, and they're His children, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. I want them not to feel like that they have to go about working so hard in this semester, harder than anyone else, or have to drop out of school, or get D's and F's and have a really, really sad GPA or transcript. If they can just come up here and just do the paperwork, the initial paperwork, we can get them supported, and they only see me after that for about once a semester. That's all.